Hello everyone and welcome to the Maxon booth here at SIGGRAPH 2024. I'm your host Matthias, aka Major VFX on all the socials, accompanied on the stage with some of the most amazing artists showcasing how they use Maxon 1 in their workflows to put together some of the most beautiful imagery you'll see on any screen. To my left is a longtime artist who's presented with us twice virtually during those crazy years a few years back, but now welcome to the stage, first time live in person, Sarah Gibson. Let's give her a big round of applause. Big Maxon welcome.
Hi everybody. All right, so before we really dive into sassy fun with Redshift Toon, I'm going to show you some of my work and we're going to go ahead and watch my reel so you can see what I do.
Of them bubbles. It's my night and we'll do it like we always do. Louis bag and Prada too. Show stop and make some money. You only live once before you turn to dust. I'm feeling fabulous. We're gonna misbehave. Oh, bring the champagne. Oh, that's how we celebrate. Pour me some bubbles. Pour me some. Pour me some. Pour me some. Forget your troubles. Pour me some. Pour me some bubbles. Do it on the double, baby. Give me them bubbles, yeah.
All right, thank you. Oh. Next, there we go. All right, so this is just an overview of what I'm going to cover today. So we're going to be adding Sass to a walk cycle. We're going to talk about texturing and UVing and Cinema 4D. I'm then going to bring that into Marvelous Designer. And then we're going to make a very quick outfit for her in Marvelous Designer. And we're going to show, well, I'm going to show you how to export that from Marvelous so that you can bring it back into Cinema 4D as well as into Substance Painter so you can bring all those texturings together into Cinema 4D and some rendering and post stuff. All right, I'm going to exit out of this. And so here we have, as I call her Kitty, my burlesque dancer. And this is a loop that I made of her that's very, very simple. Window, I want to show, where, there's the timeline. All right. And I pop this. I like to have it down at the bottom. I'm gonna bring this back up. I'm gonna go into my F curves. Okay, so when you are exporting a character out of Cinema 4D for Marvelous Designer, you need to have it start in a T pose or an A pose. So if I go to frame 0 here, you can see that she starts off in more of an A frame pose. This is just what I prefer. You do you, whatever you're comfortable with. Now, I like to give about 48 frames of a transition from the starting pose into whatever I'm having the character do. So my loop starts at frame 48. And so if I press the space bar, this is basically I removed all the sass out of her walk cycle. And I kept the movement in the hands because we're mostly going to be focusing on the hips, the spine, the neck, and a little bit of the feet. So if I hop over into this view here, and I'll go here. Now the first thing we are going to want to do is work with her hips. So I'm going to select that here. Yeah, spine, pelvis. I'm going to hop back over here. Attributes. No, I just want her hips. Go to my layers, mesh is locked, there we go. Tool, attributes. Let's make that selection smaller so we can get just the hips. There's the spine there. Come on. Spine, pelvis. Object, coordinates. Sometimes selecting them can be a little finicky. Finally, got the hip controller, I think. Coordinates, mixed. Fine hip, oh. I know what the problem is. My background isn't locked. So I'm gonna select that, add to new layer, and I'm just gonna lock it. Okay. Problem solved. Oh. Oh wait. I accidentally locked all of it. Alright, select that, add to new layer, lock it, okay. Spine, pelvis controller, okay. If I could just get, okay, hip controller, finally, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so we want her hips to rotate as she's walking. That's really where like the sassiness of her walk comes from. So this is in the passing stage, and that's where I have her starting. Here you don't really need that much of a rotation really at all, and we're going to be working with this here in the B. So I'm going to leave it at 0. I'm going to turn auto keyframing on here, and that just means I don't have to constantly be selecting that as a keyframe each time I do this. So we're going to go forward to, and I'm going to go to this view here, so I can see when the foot lands. So right where it lands. There. And I'm using F and G to go back and forth in the frame. And I'm going to give it like a 6 maybe. Let's look in this view. Oh, we can push this further. Like, and we want to actually go the other way. So we're going to do, let's do -6. Yeah, that looks good. Then we're going to go back here, and let's scroll forward to passing, and we want it to go back to 0. Then we're going to go forward again, foot landing, and let's go 6 in the opposite direction. If I do and hip controller here, let's see. Now let's take a look. Pelvis. Yeah. All right. So you can see a little bit of a movement here. And basically you would just do this over and over again. I'm going to go ahead and close the loop here at 85. Well, just so we can just play this part back and forth. So it's a little bit better, but what we have to do now is we need to have the movement go up through the spine. So I'm going to go back to my alternate view, hop in here, and I'm going to select the spine mid here, and following, so we set up, so we're going to start the rotation here at 0. We're going to go forward to when she lands, and let's try like -4. We don't want it to be, oh, we're rotating the entire model. That's not what I want to do at all. No, we want this one. Spine mid control, let's test. Yep, that's what we want. All right. So let's go back to 48, make sure it's set at 0, 60. Let's try 4. You're really trying to kind of offset, because when your body weight shifts, your spine will kind of try to compensate for that. So you want the spine to move a little bit in that direction, but not quite. So let's do like a -3 actually. And then we're going to go to her, well, we'll do the neck next. So go ahead and keyframe this to, then we go back to 0. And then here we will do 3. And I'll play that. And you'll see it flows a little bit more. And now we're going to add the neck as well. Select the neck controller there. I'm going to go to the beginning, set it at 0. I'm going to go back to my other view. And so this one, we're going to want to move in the opposite direction. Yeah, so -3 will probably be good, but we're going to start at 0. Go forward to frame 50. And we're going to do this at -3, back to 0. And then this will do 3 positively. Let's play that. I think I reversed it. We need to do 3. We need to keep those positive, 0, and let's make this one negative. Yep, neck. Yeah, -3, +3. That flows a little bit better. That gives you basically the idea. Now, the next thing to really accentuate the hip movement, I actually animate her feet crossing in front of each other. So what you need to do for that, you also need to account for when the legs are passing. So you need to bring them back out, or else, like if you were doing pants on a character, it'll really freak out Marvelous if your geometry intersects with itself. So you don't want that to happen. So for her feet, just grab the right foot here. We're going to be adjusting everything just in the x-axis. So here is where we want, right at 48 frames, for her foot. Instead of starting at 0, we want it to start at probably 6. And then, so we watch, okay. Just walking forward, that foot lands, and we're going to want the left foot as well to land at 6. No, at -6. And so now you can see they're kind of crossing in a little bit. And so then let's go forward. And at passing here, this is where I add a keyframe on the passing foot, which is the right foot in this case. And I want it to go back to, I think I cheated this one and I did it at like 3, and that was pretty good. Mostly I'm just checking to make sure her thighs aren't intersecting with each other. That will cause an issue. And then when we go back to land, we want that foot to land back at 6. So that way it still looks like she's walking completely straight, but having the legs across of each other really accentuates the hip movement and that sassy walk. All right, and to really show that, here's a walk cycle that has all of that in it. So there she is, strutting away. Let's say we are very happy with this and we want to bring this into Marvelous Designer and make some clothing for her. So what we want to do is grab Kitty. That's her name. Her name's Kitty. I'm going to grab her. I'm going to open up a new file. I'm going to paste her in there. Doesn't matter. We don't need the textures for this. Okay, now when you're exporting your character for Marvelous Designer, you really want to get rid of anything you don't need. Her hair would be a problem, so we're going to delete her hair. We're going to delete anything we don't need, like this is a hat I had made her at one point. She's not wearing these. She's not wearing these shoes because when I export it, it's going to send everything. Another very important thing that you're going to want to get rid of is, well, at least turn off, you're going to want to turn off your subdivision surface. If you don't do that when you are running your Alembic through Marvelous simulating your clothing, it's going to freak out and polygons will fly everywhere. It's a mess. Causes a lot of headaches. So here we have her. Then we just go to File, Export, Alembic, and I always click the little gear. So you want to pick your start frame and your end frame. So we're going to have it start at 0. We'll have it go to, I've been doing these at 240, I think is the end of my loop. All of this is good. I press OK, and then save it. I already have this saved, so we don't need to do it. But it happens pretty quick, and we'd send that over to Marvelous Designer. Now, before we jump into Marvelous, I'm going to hop over to my little burlesque set scene that I made that was in my reel. And I'm going to mention a little bit of UVing. So working with the Toon shader, I really like combining Substance Painter custom materials with the Toon shader. And I want to call out, well, where's my materials window? Window, materials. Well, it'll just let me open that up. Window, materials. There we go. And bring this down over here. And, all right. So if I go into specifically her hair, I'm going to show you something. If any of you didn't catch this, Grayscale Gorilla did a really great watercolor with Toon Shader tutorial recently, and that's where this stuff here really comes into play. Mostly that's just driving the internal lines on the character, specifically her hair. I didn't want all of her strands completely outlined. I wanted to kind of break up nicely. So for details on that, I highly recommend checking out the Grayscale Gorilla watercolor tutorial. Now, this is where it's a custom substance texture. That's old, I can delete that. And that's just really like taking the UVs that I mapped in Cinema 4D and then it's creating like a gradient down. It's very simple to use Cinema 4D in that way to UV your mesh, and then you can just export out an OBJ with the UVs included, and you can open that up in Substance Painter and do custom textures. We're going to get further into that in a little bit. I just wanted to make a mention, just a general overview of how I set up the textures for this scene. Okay, so we're going to hop over into Marvelous. I'm going to do File, Import, Alembic, and SIGGRAPH. Freeze. I'll just open up one, I guess. All right, project files. Okay. All right. Project file, Cinema 4D, to Marvelous. And we want Kitty Loop Sandals V5. Okay. And there she is. Now I'm going to make her something really quick. Does anyone have any requests of what I should make her wear really fast? Anybody? Like a dress? Okay. We'll just do a really simple dress. Okay. I got the idea. This means dress now. Okay. So I want to go, this is the UV editor. What we actually want is the 2D pattern window. And I like to start off making my patterns just using the polygon tool here. And you can see there she is, itty bitty. All right, zoom in. Now I always work left to right, probably because of I grew up in the United States and we read left to right, so that's just how I work. Okay. So for a dress, let's just do something simple like a tank dress. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to loop in, and holding down, I'll drag out and I'll make that a curve. And I'm going to ignore that it's going to mess up here. I'll come back and fix that after I draw out the basic pattern. Let's do just like down here. And let's go out a little wide and make it a little bit loose. Maybe kind of like fit and flare it a little bit. We'll bring it in a bit here. We'll adjust as needed. I'll probably curve it in a little bit because she's a curvy lady. As my friend said, she's thick like a bowl of oatmeal. Up here, over, and there. Now, using this, I'm going to adjust this line here, and I'm just going to bring it in to straighten that line out, and I'll show you why in a second. But now, as you can see, it's put it in the 3D space in the exact same place it is in the 2D window, but it's really far away from her, and that's going to be problematic when sewing. So, using this transform pattern tool here, shortcut is A, click here, and it should pop over a little guy over here. All right, now I'm just going to push it back so that way it's closer to her. Yeah, and using the right click, this is how I'm rotating around. Okay, like not the craziest dress. It's just something very, very simple. Now I'm going to click here. And now this is really cool that I can do unfold with symmetric editing and sewing. I do that, and it makes it into one piece. There's not even a seam in the line. And now it's a full frontal piece of fabric. Now, what then I do for the back, I'll select the whole thing. I'll do copy, paste, and I put it right on top. So that way it's in the exact same spot in the 3D view. Clicking on it again, I grab this, and I'm going to push it behind her. Now, here's a little trick. Right-click on it and do reverse normals. Where is that? Flip vertically, smart arrangement, symmetric arrangement. Flip normal, there it is. It always takes me a second to find it because I swear it moves. Okay, so that all looks good. Now in the 2D window, what's nice is after things are arranged in the 3D window, they're going to stay there. So I can move the pattern around in the 2D window and it doesn't mess with this, which is great because I need these to be separate. So I tend to put the back above the model in the 2D pattern window. That's just how I work. You can put it to the side, you can put it wherever. This part doesn't affect UVs, so do whatever you want. Now we're going to do some sewing, quick and dirty sewing. So I'm going to grab this here, and this I just need segment sewing, which is shortcut N. And what that does, if I click here, and I want to go over here, and the reason why is because even though we flip the normals in the 3D view, in the 2D view, they're still right side up. Like if you're working with fabric, your right side will be on one particular side, if any of you are familiar with sewing at all. So you need to actually sew the opposite shoulder in the 2D to the opposite, like shoulder crossing over. If you don't do that, you're going to be sewing actually the opposite shoulders together, and it's going to mess up everything. If I click here, you can see that I need to reverse the sewing actually. You don't want them crossing over like that, so then I'm going to click on the edit sewing tool. If I click back here, I can do, I still have the other segment sewing tool. That's not what I wanted. I wanted the segment sewing tool, edit sewing. All right. Sewing here, and I'm going to right click on it. No, come on. Yes, and do reverse sewing. Now they're crossing over here, but now they're straight in the 3D view, and that's going to work better. To illustrate that, I'm going to go ahead and simulate, and then it just completely fell off. Oh, it's because I have an accidental click. All right, let's try this again. There we go. There we go. It's on her partially. I'm going to go back into the segment sewing. I'm going to click here to here. And because I did the unfold with this, like the linked sewing, it means I really only have to sew one side and it automatically does it on the other side, which saves a lot of time. So I need it there. I also need it here. And that, and also here. I'm going to take both of these.
Yeah, that's the other one.
I'm going to highlight all of these, and let's bring the particle distance down to 10 on the cloth. Oh, it also looks like I have a weird sewing happening there, so let's try to figure that out. Let's reverse sew. Yeah, that's better. It's climbing up on her. I think we're gonna need, I'm gonna grab this and then give some more breathing room for the sleeves. I'm gonna move that. Too much. There. There we go. Not the prettiest dress, but you get the idea. Like, so this is how you can make something super simple in Marvelous Designer. Now, I'm really not happy with how this fabric is acting or how it's falling on her. I'm gonna switch out of custom and let's throw in, like, I don't know, cotton corduroy. That's a little better. Let's try denim stretch. Let's do, it's like, let's do like a silk chiffon. Let me check to see if there's gravity in this simulation. If you right click over here, you should be able to get to simulation. Simulation properties, there it is. All right, yeah, gravity's on and everything. Okay, I don't know why it's laying like that. I'm gonna bring down the particles again and maybe that'll help. Let's bring it down to 5, which is gonna give it more wrinkles and such. All right, that gives you an idea. Now, say you're happy with this. I'm not happy with this, but say you're happy with this and you want to see her moving in it. Now we're gonna need to record it. So we're gonna go up here to animation and click record. And it's gonna go real fast. And then you can go down here and you can scrub through if you wanna see it slower. You can see how it's moving on her body. You know, I think what the problem is, I think the collision particle distance is really high. No, it's not. Well, I'm not sure why it's acting like that, but I'll open up another one of my patterns so you can see at least a better looking thing that I've made. You get an idea of how those patterns look. So I'm gonna go into my Marvelous folder and I'll bring up the burlesque dress that I did. Let's do burlesque dress V2. Skip. All right, here it is. This is actually the UVs of this. I'm going to hop out of the UV editor just to the pattern view so you can get an idea of how that looked. This is how I made her dress. And if I press, oh, is it going to want to simulate again? I'll go ahead and simulate it. Let's record. Yeah. And you can see how the fringe is all moving, and each one of those fringe pieces is a separate piece of cloth. It looks way more complicated than it is, but yeah. So you get the idea of like different patterns. So that's her little dress with her fringe moving around. Awesome. Now let's hop back over to the one we made. Say this is awesome and we want to bring it into Substance Painter. Let's go into the UV editor. And UVing in Marvelous is super duper easy. Everything is flat because it's cloth. And cloth is 2D and it only becomes 3D when it's on somebody. So what you want to do is you're going to take your patterns and you just need it to fit in this square. And you want it to take up as much space as possible, just as that way you can have more data. So I'm moving these over. We can move them close together. I try to also keep in mind how you want the fabric, like the texture of the fabric, to flow from one piece to the other. If you're having a continuation of one thing, you really want the fabric to line up nicely. So think about that. Pretend you're actually cutting this out and sewing it together. It's just going to make your life so much easier. So I'm going to scale this up. All right. I'm going to move this in a little bit. I think I'm going to have to make this slightly smaller. There we go. Move this apart. So that looks good. Now say, because I'm going to show you something. You're going to have, if you have multiple fabrics, when you export this for Substance Painter, it's going to actually basically layer every kind of fabric you have. So to really show you how that looks, I'm going to go ahead and make a second fabric and I'm going to assign it to one of them. Yeah, I need to do it in the pattern. It won't let me do it in the UV. But I'm going to put that on the back just so you guys can see how that looks when you bring it into Substance. So you can tell what fabric is assigned to what piece when, if you none of them are selected, I select fabric 1, it highlights whatever it's assigned to. I click on fabric 2, it highlights what it's assigned to. I'm going to jump back into the UV window. All right, so super simple. That looks good. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to export these UVs. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to select a saving path. So we're going to do SIGGRAPH, me, project files, Marvelous, and this will be to Substance. Now you click save, because it's just our saving path. Oh, fine, it wants me to name it. We're going to name this, I don't know, potato sack dress, because it kind of looks like a potato sack. Okay, 2048 for the size, that looks good. Fixed texture seams. All right, really I only export out the normal. That's really all you need. Yeah, 0 to 1 is the default on the tile. I'm gonna click save. And it happens really quick, so you click it, and if it feels like nothing happened, it actually did export it. It doesn't close the window. So don't freak out and think it's not working. It worked. So now, and to show you that, we're gonna go over to Substance Painter in a second, but first we're actually also gonna have to export out the OBJ of the dress for Substance Painter, and we're gonna export out an Alembic for Cinema 4D of this moving dress. So next I'm gonna hop back over into the 2D pattern window because I like to do it from here. I'm going to select our entire pattern, and why I do this is I do File, Export, OBJ Selected. If you don't do OBJ Selected, you're going to export out not only your clothing, but you're going to also export out your model. And that can be really annoying when you bring it into Substance Painter because it's going to make a texture layer for every single piece of your model. And with my model, that means it's making one for her shoes, her eyes, her eyelids, or everything. And it's kind of annoying. So, selected only makes life that much easier. I'm going to go back to my SIGGRAPH folder, project files, and we're going to go to Marvelous, to Substance. This is how I arrange my files, but do whatever you want. So, calling this potato sack dress. See, there's the normal already popping up because it's in the same folder. And I'm going to call this V001. Save. All right. I basically always just keep the default settings. They always seem to work for me. So I just press OK. Now, to export out the Alembic, we're going to do the same kind of thing. We're going to File, Export, but we're going to go to Alembic here. And same folder setup, but I'm going to go to Marvelous, to Cinema 4D, and call this Potato Sack Dress V001. Save. Oh, that looks good. Default settings. And this is the one thing you need to pay attention. You want the OGAWA, not the HDF5. Cinema 4D does not like that. Don't ask me why. I'm not that techie, so I just know this one works. So press OK. And you see down here at the bottom, it's thinking, it's saving, it's saved. All right, let's hop over to Substance Painter. And we're going to do File, New. And I'm going to select the template. And if you're doing transparency, you really want to start off, you can change it later, but you want to start off with, where is it? Metallic Roughness Alpha Blend. That's what you want to start with. So I try to make that my default just because a lot of times I need opacity and I don't like going back and adjusting things. So that all looks good. We're going to select our file. To SIGGRAPH 24. My folder. Project files. Marvelous. To Substance. Let's do date modified so I don't have to dig. Potato sack dress V001. Open. All right, now here's the other thing. Import baked maps. I'm going to add, I'm going to change this to details. Date, potato sack dress, V001. It looks like it exported everything when I just wanted the normal. Normal, open, press OK. There it is, and all its potato sacky glory. Okay. Now, next thing you're going to want to do, in the texture set settings, I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to click Bake Mesh Maps. And this is really, and you just like bake selected textures. It's just the one dress. In the back. It's got a very high polygon count, so that's probably why it's looking potato sacky. All right, return to painting mode when it's done. So now I'll go back to our texture set list. I'm going to pull this up. So you can see here's the front and the back. And that's what happens when you have multiple fabrics, which can come really in handy. It's just something you need to keep in mind when you have multiple fabrics. You're going to have to combine those textures together, either in Cinema 4D by using like a mix shader, or a lot of times I just will do it in Photoshop by hand. And there's also a plugin you can get that's a free plugin, but you should give the creator a little something something. And you can, you know, combine them with that, which works pretty well most of the time. I only really have trouble if opacity is involved, which a lot of times happens. But, all right, so that is how you bring in your dress, your clothing, whatever that you've made in Marvelous into Substance Painter. Let's throw on just like something really simple in here. Let's just look at, we'll just use the default library for this. Let's do fabric. Let's make this a denim dress. So in the front, layers, I'm just going to drag this denim there. I'm going to use Alt, holding Alt. This is how I'm spinning around. I'm going to bring the tiling way down so it looks more realistic. A lot of times working with this, you're going to need to bring your tiling down. Just automatically the textures are so much bigger on the fabric than you want them to be. And so that's the easy, quick thing. Just drag the tiling down in the properties of your fabric, and it'll just look a lot better. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the front. Just drag this in. But I'm also going to tweak it. Since we did all this trouble of doing two fabrics, let's change the color. Let's make this, I don't know, like a purpley, like a pink and blue random denim. I'm going to scroll back up, and I'm going to do the same thing, bring the tiling way down so it looks more realistic. Oh. Hopping back and forth between all these things, I always end up right-clicking because that's how you navigate at Marvelous, and then in here you have to hold down Alt to rotate around. So that's why that keeps popping up. Okay, say we're we love this dress. It's the best dress to ever dress. We're going to export it out. as the textures for Cinema 4D. Let's go to File, Export Textures, and we're going to change this. Well, we don't have opacity, so we can leave it at just the PBR metallic roughness. I tend to do 16-bit because I'm extra. And dilation infinite is the default. I like to do just, because that basically means your fabric is going to just fill up the whole frame, not just to the UVs, which can be problematic when you're combining textures. So you don't want it to just go all the way to the edges. You really kind of want it to just, you want no padding pass through, and then it's just only going to go to the edges, which just is going to make your life a lot easier if you're combining them in Photoshop, even if you're combining them in Cinema 4D. It just makes life just a little bit easier. So I do that. I'm going to look at the output templates, make sure the right one is selected. So PBR metallic roughness, it's giving us all of this. List of exports, it's going to show you everything. Now, let's go back to settings, and we're going to click on the output directory and set this up. So this is what I do. So project files, substance, exports. I'm going to make a new folder, and we're going to call this potato sack dress. Double click, select folder. We're going to press export first. And then I always like to click Save Settings after I export. If you click Save Settings first, it's going to close the window and they have to set everything up all over again. I don't know why. It just does that. So then I click Save Settings, and for some reason, then it actually saves the settings. I don't know why. Just a thing I've noticed, and that will make your life a little bit easier. Okay, now let's go back to Cinema 4D. I'm going to go to Kitty Walk Loop 2. Let's go to our main view. And let's go File, Open, SIGGRAPH, Project Files. And first, let's bring in the Alembic. So to Cinema 4D, date modified. Did it not save in the right place? It might have saved it in the Alembic in the Cinema 4D file. Well, I don't know where it is, so I'm going to figure out where it went. File, Export, Alembic, Project Files, Marvelous 2 Cinema 4D. Yeah, there it is. It's there. Okay, that's weird. Let's hop back over here. File, Open. Project Files. Marvelous. Did it just end up in the main part? No. No, that's 2 Substance. 2 Cinema 4D. Where are you? I'll export Alembic. Project Files Marvelous 2 Cinema 4D. And then it's right there. Two Cinema 4D. I'm going to check if it's in the actual folder and see if there's something's just going wrong. Marvelous 2 Cinema 4D. Yeah, that's not there. All right, I'm just going to export it again, and hopefully this time it'll work. I'm just going to put it in the main folder so it doesn't get lost. Dress. Okay. What is going on? Cinema 4D. I'm just going to open up another one that I've done just so we can keep going because I don't know why it's not showing up here. All right. No. So we'll just do File, Open. We'll just open up another dress that I've done. Export, Project Files, Marvelous. To Cinema 4D. And we'll do the last dress I did, which was like a silky dress. So we'll open that up. There it is. I'm going to grab it, copy. Let's go in the walk loop. I'm going to paste it in. There it is. It's going to move with her. Or not, because this is a different animation. I shouldn't have done that one. I knew she did a spin in this thing. File, open. We'll open up this evening dress. That's just a walk cycle. Grab that. Okay, it's in there. I'll press play. There's that evening dress that I did, moving along with her, looking great. I like to throw these on a subdivision surface. And I have a Redshift tag on it, so I like to have it as an AOV for rendering and a puzzle mat. I'm going to delete this old material. All right. Now, to bring in the materials, I typically will just create a new material. No. In Redshift materials. A material and bring that in, and we're going to need a texture. I'm going to link that to the color. And this one also uses multiple materials, so you'll be able to see how I've combined them together, because she has, the underskirt is a different material than the top part, and there's also sequins. So let's go here. Project file, substance, exports, and I want, evening dress. Evening dress 2. Here it is. And this is what has exported out, and they're all separate. And then this is it combined. And I did this all by hand in Photoshop using the normal map as kind of a template to create my masks. And I'll go ahead and open up just like the base color. So you can see how I combine the textures by hand, because I like not having a giant amount of nodes in my textures because it kind of gives me a headache after a while. Do we not have Photoshop on here? Oh, I might have just opened up. Yeah, I put the Photoshop file in there. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to open it up and show you, so I'll have to do that. But I'll put in the color correctly as the PNG. If I go into the folder, and if I go to Substance, Exports, Evening Dress 2, Combined, and I open up the base color Photoshop file, always. While that's opening up, I'm going to go ahead and Control, drag, bring this out, and start plugging in the other textures. So I have a height. I have the metallic for the sequins. I have a normal. And a roughness. So at least they're all in there for me to start plugging in. Now let's hop over to Photoshop real quick. Not now. All right. So this is how I combined all the different textures. So this is the top part of the dress where it's the sequins, and then there's these pleats that I did underneath. If I hide all of these, this is basically the texture UV map that I exported out for Marvelous for this piece, where this is stuff here is all the sequined top part of the dress, and this is the underneath, which is a different color. So I did very simple, whereas this part here now is the fabric that's underneath. This is the sequin and the fabric on top, and that is the sequins on the strap. So I hide this, I export this out as a PNG, and then I can just bring these all into Cinema 4D to texture out the dress. So, and then it's just plugging all of these into the correct things. I assume you guys know Cinema 4D really well, so you don't need to actually watch me set up this material. But this is how you bring something that like your character into Marvelous, and then bring that dress out of Marvelous into Substance Painter, and then bring it all back into Cinema 4D together and render it out. We're going to move on to my burlesque set. If I scroll forward, you'll see there she is strutting up the steps, all the lighting and stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit of how I rendered this and a little bit about the post work I did, and then we'll wrap this up. So I really liked the idea of combining Toon with some realistic cloth texture. So her dresses are all like normal textures, and I did everything else with Toon. So I UV'd all of the set and my character and her hair and everything, so that way I could do add little touches in Substance Painter, just to give her a little bit more of a painterly, watercolor, Art Nouveau kind of vibe. And then for the export, I'm going to go into my render settings, and I'm going to show you some of the AOVs I set up. Render settings. Drag this over, just so you can see. Click over to Redshift. Let's go to AOV, show AOV Manager. So I created a custom ones, which is being driven by her sequin burlesque dress texture. I'm going to also pull that up so you can see how I did that, because it's a really great thing to be able to do something in post, to be able to pull something very specific out of your textures. And that's how I really drove the little glints that happen on her dress. That's all added in post and After Effects. So let's see, where is the dress? Toon skin. Dress. Toon shoe. Dress multi. That's what I want. All right. So you can see here, this is one that I didn't combine in Photoshop, so you can see that it's a little bit more of a mess because I didn't clean it up beforehand. I brought it together in Cinema 4D, which is why now I bring it together in Photoshop, because it makes life a little bit easier. But this is the metallic pass here, and I have that going to a store color to AOV, and that's where I added the custom pass, which I called sequins, because I knew what I wanted to drive the sparkle in After Effects. And then from that, the material blender is plugged into that for the beauty, and then plugged out on the surface. You have to set it up that way or it won't show up in your AOV options. So that's where that AOV comes from. Then I have one for the shadows, for the bulbs as they're lighting up, because I wanted to be able to tweak that in post, because I wasn't really happy with the color, and I like having flexibility after I render for 10 hours, that I don't have to do it again just to tweak a color. So shadows, bulbs, a Z pass, and then the puzzle mat is, I'll show you in After Effects, but it's basically just like, I did one for like her body, so I could do a little bit of a light wrap, so the effects I was adding on top of the bulbs wasn't over her body, because that wasn't realistic. It needed to be kind of like hitting the edges, but not covering up her feet as she's walking up the steps. So let's go into After Effects now. And Project Files, After Effects, Burlesque Scene. We're going to open this up. Yeah. I use Real Smart Motion Pro. That's really just for the champagne happening in the background. That was another thing I puzzle matted just so I could add that and smooth out the liquid simulation. Okay. All right, I'm going to hide, well, actually, let's undo that. I'm going to solo. This is the render with no post effects added. Just as is. You can see why I wasn't really happy with the bulb color, and I knew I wasn't going to be, and I wanted to tweak it. So with the bulb pass, I don't know how my effects window isn't open. Window, effects and presets. Oh, it's over here. I'm used to it being over there. Never mind. Okay, so I did a linear color key on that, and then I added a star glow on top and just tweaked that so it was a little bit more of a straight glow and not like a full star going out. I wanted it to just be more of like a line. And that you can do in the individual lengths here, where I turn them all down and turn the left and the right way up. And that's the champagne, which I pre-comped and then did a Real Smart Motion blur on. And then the sparkle, which is what is controlling the sparkles on her dress. If I click into that, and again, you can see there is the custom AOV I made of just the metallic pass of the dress, which is really all the sequins I put all over the dress by hand and substance. If I click out of the graph editor, scroll over, you see there we go up. And now if I actually like, as I did like a matte on it, that is the direct AOV. And I have a white solid on top of that that is being masked by it with a Luma matte. And on that I put a fractal noise and a levels, and I'm animating the fractal noise to kind of just drive when the sparkles happen. And so it's very short, so they're just glints, little tiny glints just happening on top of each other. So that's how I drove. You can see here the sparkles happening on the dress as she's walking up and forward. So that's how I did that, because I really wanted to try and recreate that. If anyone remembers Anastasia, the Disney movie, and when she's at the opera dress and you pan up and the little sparkles on her dress, I always thought that looked really pretty. I wanted that same kind of effect, and this is how I did it. Then on top of that, I did a chroma, and with the Z pass, I'm really making it only affect the outer edges because I like to add some imperfections. And then on top of that, I did a grain. And then in Photoshop, using watercolor brushes, I created a custom vignette that's animating, I think, on 4s, which is just giving it kind of a little bit of a glitchy watercolory thing around the edges. And yeah, all right, that's it. Any questions? And there's Matthias. There you are. I was like, where'd he go?
Not far away. Got pulled into another convo, as we always do here on the showroom floor at SIGGRAPH 2024. So we do have time for about just 1 or 2 questions before our next presenter gets ready. So if you have it, now's a good time. If not, Sarah will be right next door at our Dell booth, so you'll be able to go over any of her workflow a little bit more in depth. Mm-hmm. Any questions now? So that's when you know you did a good job, because then they don't have questions.
I guess so. I tried to cover everything, and I did it all.
You hit your points.
I did it all.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's give her another big round of applause, and we'll see you right after the break. See you soon, Internet.